We're celebrating the first anniversary of Brex Travel, and I can share a lot of success cases around the logos we won, and very very demanding customers we're serving, and like how commercially it's been a successful thing. But for me personally, the biggest achievement of this partnership and this announcement has been we've changed the entire industry expectations of what integrated travel and expense and card would actually look like. Let's dive in.
All right. Well, I'm very excited today. I'm speaking with Karandeep Anand. Karan is the president and chief product officer at Brex. And Brex is a Spotnana channel partner. In fact, you were the first company to publicly announce that you are a channel partner for Spotnana. And that happened about a year ago. And Karan, I wonder if you could start off by just giving us an overview of Brex and tell us a little bit about the success the company is having as well.
Indeed. Justin, thanks for having me here. Obviously, very huge fans of Spotnana. We took a bet on Spotnana a while back. But before we get into all of that, a real quick background. Karandeep Anand, been at Brex for a little over 2 years now. And Justin, Brex started as the first corporate card for startups. And we've had exceptional performance and success in serving startups of all sizes, and today 1 in 3 startups in the US is on Brex. But since then, we've come a long way, and we also added a whole bunch of enterprise customers, and we've been growing up market pretty materially in the last 18 to 24 months. And now we are the only solution which has an integrated card, expense management, travel, and procurement stack, all built as a total spend solution. So we now serve everything from a 5-people startup all the way to a 50,000 size enterprise company with our single continuous finance stack. So pretty exciting, portfolio of products that we get to serve all segments, and obviously travel is a very core part of it.
Amazing. And you mentioned that you joined about 2 years ago, and prior to joining Brex, you were at Meta, and you were VP of Business Products there. So what made you decide to join Brex?
I think so. I had a great ride at Meta and Microsoft before that, and I think during my time at Meta, the best parts for me when I was also building things and we were moving fast, and which is what left. I'd only worked at large companies, and there was an itch that I really really wanted to scratch, which is what would it feel like to go and work in a much smaller company setting as well. And that's the reason why after doing both Microsoft and Meta, very large companies, very successful companies, I wanted to try something way earlier stage, way more nimble. And after spending a lot of time, Justin, talking to a lot of founders, a lot of VCs, I zeroed in on Brex, mostly because of the people and the culture and the dream big aspirations they have on taking on a very, very established old school industry that's been around. Like we used to do, even at Meta, we used to do expenses on Concur. And I was like, oh my gosh, there has to be a better way to do this thing. So I think the fact that Brex had aspirations to go disrupt this traditional industry that finance hasn't touched in a long time, I was like, this is for me.
Well, fantastic. And what do you see as the big trends that are happening in this spend management, corporate card space that Brex is focused in on?
Indeed. I think as I mentioned previously, this industry has not really changed a ton in the last 25 years. The last big innovation that happened in the space was when Concur helped replace Excel spreadsheets to go do expenses. And since then, not a whole lot changed, except for one big transformation that recently has happened or happening in the last 4 or 5 years is bringing corporate card and expense management together as a single vertical solution has fundamentally transformed what you can do in the expense management space now. So I'll give you a very simple example. And a good analogy here to think about is the Apple ecosystem and the Android ecosystem. The reason why a lot of us love the Apple experience, whether you're an Android fan or Apple fan, doesn't matter, but the Android experience looks very different, which is it's a modular plug everything experience, and flexibility is amazing. But the Apple experience is you bring full stack right from when you swipe the credit card, the transaction happens, all the way to it gets approved, it gets correctly classified, and your accounting team never even have to deal with it unless it's an exception. That magical vertical experience is where the spend management industry overall is headed to. And it's almost like, a no-brainer at this point that why would you have 3 completely disconnected systems that don't talk to each other, have a horrible experience for employees as the default. So that's going to be where the world is headed now.
I sometimes think about how credit cards are an example of how hard it is to make something really simple, because from the user experience, they're just paying for something. It's a tap or a swipe, and then on the back end, a million pieces of information get shared across this vast network, and it's all seamless to the customer. And so I think I always think about how hard things are behind the scenes and how impressive companies are when they're able to make things truly simple.
Yeah, it's a magical experience. Like we're so used to it in the consumer lives, and somehow when we come into work, we're willing to put up with like old kludgy software. That doesn't need to be true. That's why, like what you guys are doing on Spotnana and what we've been able to do on with Brex is bring that consumer grade experience for all use cases for employees, because the consumer lives are not any different, and they should have the same amazing consumer experiences when they're at work as well.
So Brex announced the release of Brex Travel about almost exactly a year ago. And how has that first year gone for you?
Yes. So I think we're celebrating the first anniversary of Brex Travel, and I can share a lot of success cases around the logos we won, and very very demanding customers we're serving, and like how commercially it's been a successful thing. But for me personally, the biggest achievement of this partnership and this announcement has been we've changed the entire industry expectations of what integrated travel and expense and card could actually look like. So the fact that when you're traveling and you swipe a card, and whether you're in a hotel or you're a train ticket or a flight, everything just works seamlessly together, is now seen as a norm. Versus like people were earlier putting these systems together, and the fact that in such a short time frame we were able to change the entire industry expectation that there is a better way for doing things has probably been the most impactful part of this partnership and this announcement in a year. It's been a year, and we have people assuming that this is how the world should work, because it's exactly how the world works in the consumer life. So I'm pretty excited to not just have commercial success part in alongside Spotnana, but also have a material shift in industry expectations on what great could look like.
Karan, when you're out there selling Brex Travel, who is it that you're running into, and why is it that they're choosing Brex Travel over other alternatives in the market?
Great question, Justin. I think this has been a great learning for us, where we thought, when we go sell Brex Travel, we will be competing against the usual TMCs of the world, which is exactly what shows up. You run into the more traditional players like a Navan or Concur with like some OBT slapped onto a really old school TMC, and and normally we get into these conversations and we're trying to explain how Brex Travel works. The first few conversations are just bizarre. They're like, okay, so you're not an OBT, you're also a TMC, and you also an inventory provider, and you don't you're not trying to get intermediary fees. What is going on here? So the first learning I've had is even like the so-called modern travel solutions like trip actions or whatever are very old school in their architecture and in their fundamental design philosophy, because all of them were built around the fact that they will make money sitting in between. So the company is ultimately paying money, whether it gets hidden as a markup on the fare or it gets hidden because they get kickbacks from the airlines. That is the state of the industry today. So yes, you can put a nice little cool shell on top of your old TMC stack and call it trip actions or any one of the new ones. It doesn't change the fact that it was designed fundamentally in a wrong way, where you were never solving the pain for the customer or the user. So when we are out there selling, Justin, we end up spending a bunch of time upfront explaining that our fundamental philosophy is to serve the consumer of the product, the company and the buyer, and then helping the suppliers in that order, versus the other way around, which is how it's messed up. And we do not sit in between trying to make money on any of that. And that is a very fundamental rewiring of how the competition has been almost, I don't want to use the word lying, but essentially been misleading buyers for such a long time because there's nothing else available. So I think I really love the fact that building on Spotnana, Brex Travel is able to be very honest and direct with where we create value and how we capture value. We're not trying to hide the fact that, hey, we're trying to create value in this experience and then we'll get some kickbacks from any of the airlines. We just don't do that. And I think that's the reason why I really believe in Spotnana's approach to travel as a platform, with the promise of you'll always have access to the best fares anyone ever will have, is very core part of the travel selling experience. So I'm really glad that when we run into competition, we almost always win, because the minute you can explain what we are serving is you, not any of the intermediaries, it becomes a very straightforward sales process.
Karan, why is travel important to Brex customers? Why did you decide to prioritize adding travel to the Brex product suite?
That's a great question, Justin. The way to think about this is, companies spend money on three big buckets.
Mhm.
One is, employees and headcount, which is essentially what we call payroll, and that's like a very large part of what the company ends up having expenses on. The second one is what we typically know as procurement, or like, direct or indirect purchases. So either you're buying goods for your supply chain, or you're buying large contracts, like you want to buy large software or do events or do buy hardware, depending on the business you're in. And that's a pretty meaningful second chunk of the expenses the company has. And the third one is the most distributed spend that a company does is T&E. So travel and entertainment is the single biggest in terms of volume of transactions that happen. There might be small dollar amounts, but that is where most employees in the company participate. Because finance typically deals with the procurement parts, and then HR deals with the payroll part. But T&E is the most widely touched expense type in a company. And that's the reason why our vision has always been to offer the best experience for employees when they're dealing with expenses. And that's the reason why travel is such an integral part of that experience of how you're spending companies' money to move the business forward. So I think trying to do this as two separate things, like you have travel and then you have to do or deal with expense management later, just fundamentally disagrees with how we see the world. We see the world as a tightly integrated, fully verticalized stack, where whether you swipe the card to get on a flight, to coming back and doing your hotels, you never have to ever do an expense report. And that's the reason why first party travel is a very critical part of tackling this third largest spend bucket a company has. So that's the reason why travel is almost existential for my business, which is, if you don't have a great travel offering, it kind of defeats the purpose of having only card and expenses for all the T&E expenses.
Makes complete sense. And I can see how travel is something that's really strategic for your customers, and thinking about how they want an integrated solution that combines major expenses and the ability to submit those expenses and have all of that be one seamless experience. And so, thinking about that, why did you decide to partner for travel rather than build something completely on your own?
Uh, this brings back memories of the conversations we had almost now 2 years ago, where you know Brex. One of the reasons why Brex has been as successful as it has been is we're very very honest with ourselves on what our true strengths are and where we need to lean on partners which are exceptionally good at what they do. So could we have built a travel product ourselves by like cobbling things together, have a travel ops support team? Probably yes. I mean, a lot of people think, oh, it's a technology problem, and if you have smart engineers, you can build anything. But as we both know, travel is much more than just technology. There are so many moving parts and so many pieces of running a travel platform and a whole travel experience. And that's when we were evaluating whether we build, whether we buy, whether we partner. I think it became very obvious to us that what we want to bet on is the most advanced stack on the planet, which thinks about travel all day long. The way we think about finances and expenses and credit card and global financial infrastructure, money movement, that's what we live and breathe. I wanted to look for a partner which would essentially live and breathe travel all day long. Like, hey, where is the flight inventory coming from? Where the best prices are coming from? Do I have the most coverage of hotel coverage prices? I want somebody to be living and breathing this at a global scale, the way we do it for expenses. So when we went through that exercise, Justin, it became very obvious that I do not want to offer a B grade travel bolt on product. That's the reason why we decided to go with in the industry best, and that's why we decided on Spotnana as well. Was Spotnana is in your DNA, travel is in your DNA for Spotnana, and the way finance is, and that's the reason why we decided to bet our entire travel business and product to be deeply integrated with Spotnana, as opposed to trying to build it ourselves. So I think it goes back to we want to play to our strengths, and our strength is expenses cards, and I wanted to have a partner whose strength was travel. So the thing that decision was pretty obvious to me after spending some time, that there's so many bad travel products out there, and we didn't want not want to build another bad one.
Brex and has built an incredibly deep integration to Spotnana. The way that you've decided to approach this is not just to um, do a simple embedding of our technology in Brex's user interface. Instead, it goes much deeper than that. Can you say a little bit more about your philosophy and what it is that you're building?
Indeed, I think it goes back to why we, when we decided to partner instead of building it ourselves, it became very obvious that I do not. Usually the trade off is either you build something yourself and it's deeply integrated and it feels like a single product, or you partner, in which case it looks like a bolted on product. And the way one of the values we have at Brex is we want to break the trade off, and that's the reason why we decided to go, also Big Spotnana was like, you have a very API first approach of providing travel technology versus purely just saying, hey, here's my website, link to it, and you'll have a white labeled product. That was not going to solve what we really want to solve, which is a fully deeply integrated stack. So I think our philosophy remains the same, which is when a customer is buying a full stack T&E solution, they're not expecting the seams to start showing, saying, oh, my credit card came from American Express and my expense came from Concur, and now I have a bolted on TMC that is providing travel. If we did that, we know better than what the world has been for a while. That's the reason why we took a API first approach in a partnership where we want to have the end-to-end experience in the context of Brex. And when people are buying Brex Travel, they're buying Brex Travel. They're expecting the same level of integration that they see between our cards and expenses in their travel as well. So I think our strategy has always been that even though we don't want to build travel ourselves, we never want to expose those seams to a customer so they have to get involved in troubleshooting when something goes wrong or understand how two different products work. So I think that trade-off is really important to break, where we are not hey, Switzerland, bring your own travel, any solution, and then you can go figure out how to go reconcile at the end of the month. That's not who we are. Yes, you can use a credit card if you want to, but what we really want to do is if you are buying Brex Travel, you're getting the best full stack experience you can get natively into the product. Very simple example: as soon as somebody books a ticket on Brex Travel, in the back end, Spotnana is making the reservations because you're going through this complicated NDC network to get the best fares. But automatically, as soon as the reservation is done, it shows up in your Brex itinerary in your app. The expense is automatically reconciled because we know it's a in policy expense. And the day before your travel, we can send a notification in Brex Travel app. All of those cannot happen if it's a bolt-on experience. That's the reason why native deep integration is an extremely critical part of the experience we're aiming to have in this industry.
And you just mentioned NDC in passing there, and it's a very significant change that's been happening in the airline industry in particular, and in travel overall. When you started down the journey with Spotnana, were you thinking about NDC at all? And in general, like how have you seen things change over the past year in the industry, and how has that affected the way that you think about our partnership?
Great question. I think NDC, API first platform, the scrappiness of the Spotnana team were all very critical consideration factors for us to go with Spotnana. Because obviously, at our size, we have tens of thousands of customers. Taking a bet on back then what used to be an early Series B company, it was not entirely a bet based on like the product you have today, but the vision that Spotnana has had. And NDC is a very core part of it, which is the reason why Brex is Brex is we have very deep native integration with MasterCard for global financial services, as an example. And we know the dividends it has paid over the years to bet on a platform which is so forward looking that you might not have the features today, but we know the vision is aligned. I think that's the reason why the NDC approach that Spotnana took, which is instead of just being another TMC, which is aggregating on top of a GDS system, in which case, like, better than anything, no one else. The approach and philosophy was you want to turn the business model on its head, where the traveler is getting the best choice, the most inventory, the best fares, and direct connection with the airline. fundamentally speaks to the philosophy that we have even when we're building out our global card network, as an example. So I think that is one clear example of how the industry is rapidly evolving to. It might not be there today, and I know American Airlines and United, a couple of them already are ahead of the curve, but we know that's exactly where the industry is going to end up in. So we decided to go and partner with Spotnana mostly to get to where the puck is going, not where where the world has been for the longest time. So I think to answer your meta question on what's the industry trends like, I think yes, most of them came from, oh, I want to have a cheap travel solution to bolt on, to like, no, my employees in the company are demanding the best inventory, best fares, best experience, best native experience, and all of those things are where our visions align between Brex and Spotnana very closely. Which is, we will build the first tech stack, which is completely designed on transparency and full access to all the inventory. So I think that's one very critical example of where not just our visions align, but the industry is also maturing very quickly, where they're asking, saying, hey, where is my Southwest fares? Where are my EasyJet fares when I'm in Europe? And that is where the industry will obviously eventually get to, because when I get on Google Flights and my employees can find the best fares there, they want that and much more from the corporate travel, because corporate travel is not supposed to only have the Google Flights data. It's also supposed to have my special custom deals that I've done with my airline partners. So I think these are all pieces which, we obviously need to keep educating the industry on. But luckily, our users and consumers are inherently dissatisfied with travel, and they're making the demand for where the world needs to go.
And in the year that we've been working together, we've released a lot of new functionality. What aspects of Spotnana are resonating best, do you feel, with your customers?
I mean, all of them, to the point where I actually have my wardrobe is now Brex plus Spotnana. Like I've been very very impressed with the pace of innovation. I think a lot of times people forget that uh, you know the most demanding enterprise buyers are also the most patient ones when they are looking for a long term bet on a platform. So I'll give you an example of customers like SeatGeek or Roblox who've been on Brex Travel with us. They have hundreds of very very demanding asks, and rightfully so. They should. I mean, they're building great tech themselves, and like they demand great tech from us as well. And that's the reason why, instead of having naming any one individual feature, which I have a long list of, including the fact that I can reclaim my canceled flight credits by self versus instead of like being stuck on a phone for like an hour, are all examples of the speed of innovation is what I'm most excited about, and our customers are most excited about, than any in one individual feature. So every time we come back and say, "Hey, this is broken," I love the fact that we solve it through technology versus trying to throw more humans at the problem and trying to solve it operationally. So I think for me, if you was to ask, it's not any one feature that stands out. It's the fact that the vision is aligned to solving hard problems through technology at a global scale and doing it very quickly and rapidly in response to customer feedback, which has been my most important learning.
Karan, I have to say I am a huge fan of Brex's brand and design aesthetic. How is it that you think about that, and what role did that play in selecting Spotnana as a partner?
It feels like a small thing, but being able to give confidence to the user that this is a one single stack and you have my back in case something was to go wrong is very important part of our brand promise. So I think yes, absolutely, both the brand promise of we're there for you is the best technology and most premium technology on the planet, and the fact that it feels like a single integrated brand experience is a very core part of our decision.
What you've done to achieve that, I think, is very impressive. When I see demos of the integrated experience, I see parts that are designed purely by your design team, and then I see parts that are Spotnana, but in a white labeled context with your brand colors, your design elements all surrounding that, and it feels very seamless to me. And how do you ensure that that happens in the way that you deliver?
It's a great partnership. I think the fact that our design teams get to work together, our engineering teams get to work together on an ongoing basis. We are on a weekly stand-up call between the two teams. We triage issues together. I think it goes back to the very fundamental vision, which is why we also picked Spotnana. Spotnana aims to be the travel platform, not the travel product. There's a huge difference in that small statement, but I think that attitude, that vision, underlines why things work the way they do, because platform companies are built fundamentally differently than a pure product company. And the reason why we picked Spotnana is like the aspirations and vision to become a platform company, and hence its platform is what we can genuinely customize to be your brand, and they work with developers like our teams to make that feel real. And I think that has played out really well in the last 18 months.
And I saw that you had a recent announcement about some really exciting new AI capabilities. Can you say more about what you've just announced and how you're thinking about AI?
Indeed. I think, like most of the industry, AI is both buzzword as well as actually a massive way to fundamentally redesign and rethink how this experience around travel and expenses, or just expenses all up, can be very different than what we used to. So we try not to be on this buzzword bandwagon. So we took our time to go launch Brex AI in a very thoughtful way. And we essentially see, Justin, AI play out in three different ways for Brex. Number one is, like, we've been using a ton of AI for the last 5 years on the back end. So everything from risk, fraud modeling, underwriting has been, so AI has been a deep DNA. I think what Gen AI now, with the recent announcements, allows us to do is take that experience from the back ends to actually also on the front end experience that an employee will have in a company or a finance team will have when they're closing the books. So what we announced recently was Brex AI, which is the Brex assistant, to take care of all the common redundant tasks on, like, what needs to be approved. You have a missing memo. Where is the receipt? We can automate most of that. Like, there's no reason why humans should be spending any cycles on any of that. I'll give you a simple example. We were at dinner last night with a client and swiped the card, and AI assistant was able to go look up my Google Calendar to say, okay, I was meeting with XYZ, two people showed up, two people had declined, automatically filed the expense, picked up the restaurant, picked up the context of the meeting, picked up the client's name, knew how many people were there because two people had declined. I did not have to do anything. That is an example of intelligence applied correctly. So it's not a buzzwordy thing. It's a very small thing. Like, it happens in the background. Nobody sees it. But the fact that it saved me 10 minutes of annotating what this was, then talking to my assistant and the company, my admin, she's awesome, but I'm wasting her time to saying, hey, here's a contest, please file an expense report. That the whole thing is gone. Ultimately, AI is going to be the sum of these few minutes of magical moments compounded over time. And I think that's how we're looking at AI is it should genuinely be an assistant to make things happen faster and easier. And that's why I'm like very, very excited about what it does. As a simple example for the employees, but imagine what it is doing for the finance teams is 1,000 times more, because they're dealing with hundreds of thousands of these expenses coming in and having to go through it manually, classify, reclassify, annotate. All that is gone. You don't need any of that. So that's why, like, I'm pretty bullish on the power of what AI can do, but we're at the same time being very thoughtful on how we sequence high value to not get caught up in the buzzwordiness of this AI trend.
We're thinking of it in a very similar way, just ruthless practicality. And how do we use AI in a dozen different places for different moments and different users? How do we make our agents more efficient? How do we create moments that uh, create more seamless experiences for travelers when there's a disruption, or when they're searching for a flight, or for a travel manager when they're creating a report and trying to gain insights from data? There's a dozen different places or more where in the product AI can be very, very useful. And ultimately the value should be judged on the basis of how much time does it save.
Yeah, I mean, every small delightful experience, like, deepens your relationship with the company, because, like, wow, like, you don't have to do it, but you just did it. That's amazing.
Brex has also been using Spotnana as a customer yourself for your own travel for some time, and I think
Yes,
that's
we do not partner till the time we don't put you through the paces ourselves.
completely fair and very wise as a strategy. And one of the things I think that we did together initially was support travel for an offsite that Brex put together. So, can you say a little bit more about
Indeed.
what was that event, and why do you do offsites? Why is travel important for you as a company?
And actually, this is a great question, Justin, because I want to also tie it back to another question you asked earlier. One of the trends we're seeing in the travel industry. So one is spend industry. We're seeing a lot of consolidation happening and full stack. But one of the things we've noticed in the travel, especially corporate travel, is pre-pandemic, there used to be a lot of bespoke travel that the individuals would do. And think of this as like your sales team traveling to client connections to make those meetings happen. And post pandemic, something has fundamentally shifted in corporate travel, where a lot of travel now gets done by employees in the company getting together. I think this is probably a fallout of a more distributed workforce now. A lot of people, working from home or working remotely or working distributed locations coming together and periodic basis. Brex does the same thing, where we have employees in multiple cities, countries, and we bring them periodically. So I think offsites is very critical part of Brex's culture, and we see this happening industry wide. So it's not just Brex. So one of the things we hence deeply care about is how do we make this experience of booking travel to get together to be as seamless as possible, and it should not feel like individual 1,000 people making their own trips, because then it kind of defeats the purpose, because you've lost intelligence that they're all getting together in a single location and they all need to line up and like are meeting for a purpose. So I think that's the reason why offsites as an experience end to end is both critical because it's part of our culture and DNA and a need, but also a very critical part of the product experience we aim to offer to our customers as well. So I think Spotnana helped us with the first offsite that we did in Denver, and I think booking 1,000 flights, I'm pretty sure put everyone through its high tension phase of saying, "Oh my gosh, like first time 1,000 people are going to travel together on Spotnana, how's it going to work out?" I think it worked exceptionally well, but it also gave us a lot more confidence that this is not just a Brex unique thing. Every company wants to do this for their employees, or even in their sales teams, or sometimes with customers. And being able to bring people together goes back to the very value of creating human connection, which is what travel ultimately enables. And I'm really glad, like that is now not just what Brex does periodically, but most of our customers are very heavy users of the events product.
Exciting. Karan, thank you so much for spending time with us today. It was a pleasure speaking with you, and look forward to the partnership and how it continues to evolve in the years ahead.
I'm very excited. And Justin, thank you to your team. They've been amazing partners. And more importantly, the fact that we have very similar vision and philosophy really makes us be very, very bullish about this partnership. So thank you to your team for amazing work.